Okay, so we're gonna call the meeting to order. Does everybody want to introduce themselves? I'm Heather Daigle.
Joe Bertolino here.
Mary John Boylan.
Chris McCarthy.
Deanna Day.
Those were all the members of the trust, and I'm Planning Director Greg Kadamtori.
City of Gloucester Grants Administrator Jamie Corliss.
Okay, did everyone get a chance to approve the minutes?
Yes.
To review the minutes, sorry.
Yes.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve the minutes.
A second.
Okay, minutes are approved.
Oh, we need to vote though, don't we?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, great. Jamie, do you have anything to go over, or should we just start with the discussion on inclusionary housing?
No, I have nothing to review.
Okay, great. I wasn't sure if I thought that you said something, you were starting something. Chris McCarthy.
Hello. Just wanted to try to further update our zoning bylaw with regards to inclusionary housing requirements. And when they, approximately a year and a half ago, they were doing over the a great deal of it, I think in a positive way. I thought maybe refining it even more, and was trying to do it back then. I was a little bit late to the game, and I just think it's trying to make some little changes. I think we might make a big deal with regarding getting people to, first of all, maybe want to build 9 units and under, with regards to being able to donate to the housing trust, and also from the standpoint of having the monies being able to come to the Affordable Housing Trust as well. So I just made what I thought might be some changes that we can discuss, and if we like them, forward them to the planning board or the planning board subcommittee to look at and see if they like them, I guess. So I think I'd sent them out, and I don't know what people think or what their thoughts and changes or whatever. I just I think it's something that can really enhance what we have, and that's it. And I think Greg would probably be able to have some input as to what his thoughts would be as well, being from a person who sees a lot of these projects come through the doors at the planning office.
I don't know if you want to discuss that as a board first.
I'm
I wasn't sure if you wanted to speak.
Well, I mean, I will tell you, when the planning board discussed the inclusionary ordinance in its last iteration, the in lieu discussion was front and center because of how it was potentially or not applied associated with the Halyard project. So the language of the old ordinance was fairly problematic. It also, even if it was applied, was only going to provide funding that was really the delta between market rate and affordable. So it kind of gets you something, but it doesn't really kind of move the needle, so to speak, if it, just because of how those would be assessed. And in particular, I don't think it was really even set up to deal with how to really assess it from a rental perspective. There was no time frame. So, if should it be assessed over a 10-year period of the difference between market and affordable. So quite a bit of time was discussed. As the ordinance is written, it's really encouraging inclusion of units being constructed in projects rather than just being a kind of a collection of fee that again can be very instrumental in creating affordable housing, but first and foremost, it was around trading units. So that's where the break of 6 to 9 and then 10 or greater. Anything more than 10 has to provide units at a schedule. And then between 6 and 9, it was set up so that the applicant can elect to make a payment. So I guess that's part of the balance there of if the price seems too high to pay to play, the other option is creating the affordable unit again, and that's what the ordinance is supposed to strive to do. So I think that's where some of the debate, and Chris kind of brought this up at the time of whether or not there could be something more graduated that would have less of an impact on smaller projects, because there's an economy of being able to provide a contribution at the more units, the more it could be spread over a project. So it was discussed. The board ultimately decided to continue on with the formula that's in the ordinance right now. And we haven't really seen it kind of play out yet. There's been several projects in pre-application. The assessor has certified what that contribution would be. And we kind of wait and see, whether or not somebody moves forward with the contribution or provides an affordable unit in a project.
Okay. Does anybody else want to discuss it or have anything to say?
Heather?
Mhm.
So I so appreciate Chris bringing this to this trust, because I feel that we should be advocates for zoning reform and this kind of conversation. And Chris brings his experience of doing small developments, and who's never been at the table is the small development builder. So if a builder can't do it financially, then it doesn't mean anything. You never get anything out of it.
Mhm.
So I really appreciate Chris doing this.
Well, I think almost from just a fairness standpoint, I think that if you look at a 6-unit project, one unit becomes donate, being able to do one unit, it's at over 20% of what could potentially be the profits, where at a 9-unit project with one donation, that you're looking at something that's about 11 or 12%. So I think just putting the percentages, I think just makes it more equitable and more desirable for people to take on projects. That was, and I think you look at developers, they'll just go one less unit, or they'll bump out of even hitting the 6 units. They'll just go 5, because they'll be taking money out of their pocket with that great of a amount of money on some of these projects. So that's why it's even gotten worse with the craziness of the property values today. So that's, again,
You
something-
raise an interesting point, Chris. Why would somebody do a 6-unit project?
Well, I mean, I would do a 6-unit project, but I wouldn't want to pay one full one on a 1-unit basis. It'd be something, if there was a 60% of what an in lieu payment would be, I'd be able to sit there and say, okay, that is 60% of, and Greg, what is the number right now according to the assessors?
417.
So 60% of 417 would be, I'm not sure. 417 times 60% equals
That would be
250,000. So that would be 250,000 for what would be a contribution at 60% for a 6-unit.
And so there would be people that they would still build the 6 units because the economies would make sense, even though, if they were doing 5, they wouldn't be in that
Yeah.
category at all.
Yes, it would depend. A lot of developers, they'll want to put their own sort of ego and personality into things, and they'll want to say, I don't want to have an affordable unit in my place. And they'll, some people are funny like that they'd rather not do it, because part of their project is going to have, small project is going to have an affordable in it, and they'll feel that it's going to discourage other people from buying, possibly. Those are some of my outward thoughts,
Mhm.
Not that I would do that, but I just think that it's something that being able to sit there and say, okay, right now if I'm doing a 6-unit project, my contribution would be 250 to the Affordable Housing Trust Now, putting that aside, now I've got to look at my project and how am I going to make my project work? Should I make it a little bit more bedrooms? Should I, I think they'll be able to sit there and look at it really just from a financial standpoint and be able to say, that's just part of my land cost or something. So it makes it a little bit more cut and dry. You can still give them the option, but I just think having it, I think trying to generate, I think that the other option with fairness, the other, not option, but my other thoughts is being able to funnel the money to the Affordable Housing Trust is that I believe that things can be magnified with people like ourselves being able to find projects and be able to help make them work, help make them happen as things go forward. So I think that just having one unit to one person on a small project, I think being able to get it to the Housing Trust Fund that can be spread over a lot more projects that'll make them happen. And especially as we become a more active board going forward, I think that that's something that you'll see come out, in the future, I think. So that's, again, those are my thoughts.
Any more
Thank you.
discussion
Yeah.
or motion?
I have some thoughts.
Okay,
One, I'm not comfortable with taking out the option to actually build a unit. In my opinion, I think our issue is that, people aren't building affordable units. And so even as a one-off, one unit is better than no units. And I'm wondering, and maybe I just don't recall this, but is there any data in from the application? I don't know, what is it, a board or where people would apply for inclusionary zoning? Is there any data to show that developers are choosing to go with 5 units over 6 or more units? Or, that the actual inclusionary zoning is dissuading builders? And my last point, I guess, is that with the MBTA zoning that is coming up, inclusionary zoning is going to be the primary mechanism for the local ability to create affordable units. And maybe Greg can address that. But that is our mechanism to create affordable housing units when that zoning takes effect. And so if we're going to take away the the option to build, then we're essentially losing that option again to build more affordable housing units, and we're just creating money that isn't actually going to, with the payment in lieu, it doesn't pay for the build of a single unit. So I say we don't eliminate that portion of it.
But I think, and Chris could address this better than I, but I think what Chris is telling us is that developers aren't going to do these smaller projects. This is a way to make them, to create some measure of progress toward affordability through getting money to the truck. Chris, why don't you explain them?
I can explain it simple. 100% of 0 units is 0. That's why you don't see a lot. Number one, I think that one example, and Greg could probably clarify a little bit what happened, but and I'm pretty sure when Jay McNiff's project down at the Forge, I think that he initially wanted to do more units that he did, but he actually went in a different direction with that one specifically. Dina, one of your questions was there one? I think that might be one where.
I think at that particular time, the in lieu payment wasn't really an option, and I think there's a lot more variables than just the unit count. Obviously, it depends what somebody's market is that they're going after. The units in that project were, $1 million plus. And if you tell somebody they have to create an affordable unit and the delta is $700,000, or they had the option to potentially make a payment, that could have made a difference in that particular project where there may have been a contribution. So, I mean,
He was scheduled.
I don't disagree that, if it's about the equitable approach, maybe there's a balance of, providing that fee schedule, but also providing for the opportunity for the developer to elect to do one or the other, because there may be instances based on price point where someone might choose to do the affordable unit rather than make the cash payment.
I don't think that they would. I don't think that I think if you have the sliding scale, they won't. And I think that it's hard to say that that not giving one unit, it's easy to say, well, one unit isn't there, but if you're able to take the money out and put it into something where you're creating multiple units, both rental and for sale, with having the housing trust put it forward, even though it's cut into little pieces, I do think that helps produce units. And that would be our goal as part of what we do, is both bringing in income and also spending the money, is that we would certainly, the monies that we would get in, we would make sure that they go out to help produce projects for affordable housing. So I don't think the money's really going into a hole and not providing a unit. So I think that
Is there another, could we come up with another incentive for the actual build?
I think builders and developers.
At that level, you mean at the 5 to 9 level?
6 to 9.
6 to 9.
I'm sorry, 6 to 9.
No
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, in the 6 to 9, rather than eliminate it, I would rather incentivize a developer to actually build a unit than to eliminate the building of a unit.
But how?
I don't know if other people feel that way, but I feel like that our mission is to create housing. And
Yes, but I think in little pieces on many projects can be a lot more helpful to people that are in need.
but how frequently is that going to happen?
It's happened for the last 10 years with the monies that we've had that we got from the village in West Gloucester. It's been cut into pieces and given to projects in the last 10 years. That's what's kept the board alive. And now that money has almost exhausted itself.
Mhm.
So that was an in lieu payment of about 350,000 back in, I believe, 2014. And it was able to be used and help a lot of projects along the way. So I think that it's easy to look at one unit, but I think that our job is to do multiple units. And I think that this way, with the smaller projects, you don't have many small projects because of, giving a unit taking one of the units in a project, which a lot of builders will have pride in building, and also being able to take the money that, that is associated with that, for the smaller units, they'll get discouraged. They won't do the small units. And
A perfect way to describe it, Chris, is when you look back over the last 10 years, and I can think of a few in the top of my head, but I think they've avoided going the extra units, Deanna.
exactly.
They've avoided doing that when they probably could have, because it didn't make financial sense.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah.
but
Well,
the act
Jamie,
of giving us money then we can make the decisions on how to share it.
yeah, Jay McNiff, he told me, and he said I could speak about it, is that if he were to build one more unit that made him qualify for what in inclusionary, he would have had to take, I think three, he would have had to take, to build it, he would have had to take $300,000 out of his pocket.
So, but we're giving them an option to build or to do payment in lieu. So where's
Yes.
the negative there? They just make it the choice to do the payment in lieu.
Well, they have, yes. I think that I feel that it's better to be able, if you do the in lieu with a sliding scale, that's going to be much more desirable than doing a unit. And a lot of people that are going to do these types of projects are going to be looking way over $500,000 to do them in this market. So they're going to choose the sliding scale if that's what this board would want to put forward. I think that the one that has been in place hasn't really developed much stuff that we've brought to fruition. So I think that, again, looking forward, I think, 100% of zero is zero. And I
Mhm.
think that we've got to encourage people to want to build and to know what they're looking at and to know what the figure is and be able to calculate that into what they're looking at. I think from the large projects, I think mixing the units in, I think it's, I think that's a lot of time, the bigger projects that come along, the people can handle doing the units and they blend in easier. And I think that those type of developers already calculate that into their numbers. But I think a lot of local guys that want to make smaller projects, they're going to look away from doing those. I mean, that's what they're going to do. They're going to look away from them, and you're not going to get them. And again, we haven't gotten them. To one of your questions is, because there hasn't been the incentive to do so. And even at the, some of the projects, the way that they have them go through is they do the 40B in order to get it through and do stuff with the bigger projects. But I think that if you want to incentivize local guys and to be proud of their projects and to have them happen, I think this is a way, that I think would be very helpful.
Chris, I have a quick question. And pardon my ignorance on this one. How many, on a yearly basis, how much money do you think could be brought in from this? Because in my little world in Magnolia, I'm not seeing a whole ton of development here. Obviously the Fuller School project, and there's some other ones that have been developed over the past 10 years or so, but by Niles, I'm not seeing where this is going to generate a whole heck of a lot. But that's just my little corner of the world that goes from Blossom Lane to Roger Street.
Are you asking me? I think that if it hasn't happened, there must be, there's something wrong. If there's something in the ordinance that you want to encourage people to do stuff and people aren't using it, it means that you're not providing not only just affordable housing, but people are getting discouraged from providing housing. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
And it's better, and it'll tip people more towards, I'm just going to do luxury stuff. I'm going to get into things that it's just, I'll do less in big mansions. That's what you're going to push more developers towards. You
could go all the way back to the 40 years ago when the size of lots were increased. I think I've given you the example before, the Corliss Tree Farm on Wheeler Street, which all those lots are typically 6,500, 6,700. And now they're all basically non-conforming because now the zoning in that district requires 10,000 square feet. So that's another component that's happened over a long period of time to reduce the number of units that get added. And I'm not even talking about adding 200 units. I'm talking about adding 1 unit at a time, or 4 or 6. And I think that builders, obviously, they need to have some confidence that they're not going bankrupt over a project. And so they have to look at their end result in order to decide whether they should do more units and therefore provide a unit. So I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, I don't think we're talking about a 200 unit project here. We're talking something about 6 units, 7 units, in that range. And I can think of a handful of places over the last 10 years that did 4 units or 5 units.
Yeah.
Just stayed right under where they had to be.
Yeah.
Well, I would just point out, a year and a half ago, you didn't have to provide anything until 8 units. So we have a lot of variables here. Again, I don't disagree with the idea of potentially having a sliding scale. I raised that point to the planning board. This is what they arrived at because they wanted to keep the bar pretty high to ensure that the units would actually get built. So if somebody was in a market where they were creating, $1 million+ units to begin with, because that's the market that they were after, that would be the contribution that they would have to make. So, and if somebody's less than that, then the delta between, market and affordable becomes closer and closer, in which case, the hope would be that, the units would be created rather than making the contribution. But it's a difficult market to do this anywhere. So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting discussion. No community does it the same. Some have thresholds that come in at 3-unit projects, which, have a sliding scale with making contributions, to some that don't provide any in lieu possibility at all and just require construction of units. It's no easy answer.
I like them. I think I agree with Deanna, is that I like the language of, you can do both, because I don't see again, I'm not a developer, but I don't see where more options is a bad thing. You have the flexibility to say, oh, well, I'm going to build 6 units and sell them at $1 million a piece. Here's a check for $350,000 to the affordable housing, or I'm going to build 6 at $550,000. Maybe I can provide that 6 unit as an affordable unit. I don't think it's our job to make their decision. I think it's just our job to help preserve and
Give them the choice.
And I think Chris and Deanna, I think you're both, I know this is on the fence and spoken like a politician. I think you're both right. So I like both.
Yes, I think prices, listen, I don't if you wanted to leave the option. I just think that the economics will put them towards the in lieu of. If they're gonna do a project at all. I think there's just, I think that, I think you should have a sliding scale, and I think that looking at the way that prices are going to be, you want to encourage them to to build housing, and you also want to get money to come in and give the options. Give both options. I don't have a problem with that. I just don't think that given the option that they'll take the unit, but you can certainly keep it there.
I would support the sliding scale, but I'm definitely feeling like taking the option to build away is.
No, that's fine. I don't have, if that's what the board wants, I don't have a big problem with that. It's I think economically, I'm just not sure with the way the market is, with people building projects, they're looking at doing $800 to $1.5 million pieces, projects around town. I just don't think they're, the numbers will stare them in the face which way to do it. So but I don't have the option, I just don't want to look, wouldn't want the people to look at the zoning bylaw and say, why would you do that over there if you can do this? You know what I mean?
Maybe we'll find a community-minded developer for one of these projects that would take it on that way.
I'm sorry.
Maybe we'll find a community-minded developer at some point who is willing to make that choice to build.
Well,
I think it comes down to if they can afford to make that choice.
I would say I'm a community-minded developer, and I wouldn't hand away 400,000 if I didn't have to.
Well, I wasn't implying that you weren't actually. Don't misread that. Please don't misread that.
No, I'm just saying that's if it comes down to, if there's a choice and there's a huge difference, it's obvious which one the developer will choose, or anybody, that talk to their accountant would say to choose, because again, and I think also it's just, and it's not just the money thing as much as it is knowing that your money, that whatever funds that you have, and they'll probably choose the in lieu of is that it goes and they can see projects that their monies will help magnify. and they'll have that pride of knowing how their money can outwardly help other projects. But I'd give both options. I just know which ones.
Okay.
I just know which one would be used with a a standard, developer. Again, if there's someone came in with a nonprofit or something different, it would be a whole different story. But I'm just saying as an entrepreneur, sort of build a developer, they're going to look to maximize what they can do and have pride and do a good job and know what's out in front of them from a risk standpoint and what number, that this year, what is the number we've got to target and pick on that number. So no, I have no problem with giving the option. I think the sliding scale is important to get people on the table and being able to look at it. And I just, that's, the sliding scale is more important.
And this is just to, we're just making a recommendation, right?
Correct.
This goes to another entity who will debate and make a decision on that. So the decision's not finally ours either.
Yeah, no, correct. Yes, for sure.
Okay. I think that we were looking for income generating project, like something to generate income for the Affordable Housing Trust. I think this is a great idea. So I'm either way, whether we do the in lieu or leave the option in there to build, I think I would be approve either way. So does anybody else have anything to say or create a motion?
No, just a thank you.
Yeah,
Chris,
thanks for all that
Pulling
work.
that together.
It's my wife did all the typing. She did all the hard work. I've just been living this for 30 years. That's all.
Perfectly said.
But again, I don't have a problem with even getting on board with what Dee said, is to forward it to the planning board with the option. But also just have some type of note that whatever. I mean, I have no problem with that. And
Yeah, I do really appreciate your input and your perspective as a builder. I just would like the builders to make the choice, not us. So.
Great
So-
conversation, everyone.
Yeah, definitely. Do we need to vote on this or no?
I think
I think if you want it to be by the board or by the trust, you should make a motion to forward it to the planning board. I didn't know if somebody was gonna put a cover memo on it or just, that'd probably be the way to distribute it to the planning board, and then they can
Better.
place it on an agenda
better.
for discussion.
Is that something your staff can do for the trust, Greg? So that it's in proper form?
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of an informal recommendation from the trust for the board to either take up or not. But I think, just in terms of Chris, provided some rationale and background for it. I think you've all discussed, because the way you were formed when you were reformulated, that you had very little revenue, and that's, something that the trust is looking to do, to look at avenues for creating more of a revenue source for the trust so that you can support other projects. I don't want to put the words into your mouth, but I think, something along those lines would probably be a cover with the proposed language attached.
Is that something that Chris, you can do? Or your wife?
Sort of a cover letter. I just wouldn't know how to format it. That's all. I mean, I can just take the
I can work on that with you, Chris.
okay, and should we exclude the part where just leaving it 100% for the Affordable Housing Trust? Or should we put that in there and say we had a vote? Or what should we, how do you think we would best forward that to the planning board?
Well, you can start with taking a vote to recommend to send the proposed amendments to the inclusionary ordinance to the planning board for review.
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Second,
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Sorry, and I'm gonna point of, I don't know what the term is, but because we're a recorded meeting, you need to do a roll call vote for this vote.
Oh, okay. So Chris McCarthy,
Yes,
Ruth Pino,
Yes,
MJ Boland,
Yes,
Deanna Fay,
Yes, with the condition that we talked about is having the option to build as well as the option for in lieu. Yes.
okay.
Well,
Joe Bertolino,
Yes.
Heather Daigle, yes. Sorry, Chris McCarthy?
yes. So
You want-
I've got a question. Should we just exclude the change for the 5.11.4, the requirements number 1, and just leave it as is?
Yeah, I think the only thing that you're talking about is changing the schedule of payment.
Mhm.
Yes, yeah. So that's what we should probably have the vote on, is just the new 5.11.5, housing contribution payments in lieu of on-site units.
Okay. Do we need a new motion? Is that a motion?
Yes,
I think Deanna kind of added that on, so I think
Yeah.
we've got it covered.
We've got it covered. Okay. And that was everybody, right?
Yep.
Okay, motion approved.
okay, so Greg, I'll
So
talk to
be-
you.
Yeah, we'll catch up on that.
Okay.
Before you jump to the next item, I think an email was circulated. Emerson Damon from Essex County Habitat for Humanity wanted to just briefly introduce himself and speak to the board for a few minutes on some of their work and interest, if that makes sense to kind of go out of order.
Okay, great.
I don't know. Jamie, can you bring him in?
So I have allowed Emerson to speak. Do you want me to promote to panelist?
You could do either. Emerson, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I've been actually on board for a while and I just unmuted myself.
Okay, perfect.
Can you see me or just hear me?
We can bring you in so that we can see you too. Hold on one second.
Okay, Emerson, you should be a panelist now. So you should be able to turn your camera on.
Emerson looks familiar. Still not up.
There we go. We can see you. But you are muted.
Right.
There we go. Oh, had you for a second.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'm a longtime Gloucester resident, longtime volunteer for originally Greater Lawrence Habitat, which got, well, several habitats in Essex County got absorbed into Essex County Habitat. Over the years, Habitat is, for those of you who aren't really familiar with it, a mostly volunteer builder of a nonprofit builder of affordable homes, targeting people who are just below being able to get into the conventional mortgage market. Right now, that means typically a family of 4 might be in the range of 30-some to 60-some thousand dollars a year, maybe 70-some thousand dollars a year. Typically, Habitat builds most often duplexes, occasionally singles or larger buildings, and they're typically 1,100 square feet, 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, and generally highly energy efficient, because that makes them more affordable for the families as well as being good for the community. Overall, Habitat has been business in Essex County since about 1985 and has built in the vicinity of 100 new homes and rehabbed probably another 24 or so units in the county. My numbers, if anything, are probably slightly low. I retired as construction manager from what was then Merrimack Valley Habitat, just as it is turning into Essex County Habitat. So my numbers are a couple years out of date. In any case, there used to be, once upon a time, a Cape Ann Habitat, which built 3 units in Ipswich and did some repairs for Action Inc. On some of their affordable units. But there has been no building closer than Beverly in almost a decade. Oh, one Wenham, 2 units were built in Wenham last year. In any case, we're looking to build in Gloucester, in Cape Ann in general, but expand back into Gloucester. One of the problems is that it's very hard to buy land in the current market and still make units affordable at the level that Habitat is building. So particularly what we're hoping for is a partnership with communities to tap into affordable housing money, in particular to subsidize the acquisition of land in the area so that we can move ahead and build on that land. Typically, Habitat is able to raises all of its funds from corporates, sources, private sources, institutional sources, and to some extent, infrastructure money through home funds and community development block grant money. We have partnered with affordable housing trusts, most recently in Salisbury, where that's been very fruitful. And are looking to do that with more affordable housing trusts. So I'm here to let you know that Essex County Habitat is active, not too far away, would like to become active in Gloucester, would like to have help in finding appropriate property in Gloucester, and then help with acquiring that property with the view to going ahead and doing the fundraising necessary to build the homes. Our experience has been anywhere from a single family house on maybe 5,000 square foot lot for a wheelchair accessible home to 10 units in a former convent, which are condo units in a large brick building in Lawrence. But as I say, mostly what we look to do is to do duplexes, most often on infill lots, but sometimes on larger lots, and we'll put a number of homes on one lot. So that's the gist of who we are. It's mostly volunteers. There is a staff of construction managers and office personnel who supervise the volunteer builders. But one of the ways that Habitat keeps building affordable or purchase affordable is because we aren't paying most of our carpenters, plumbers, electricians, what have you. We're finding people who are willing to put in their time to make the affordable option happen. So that's the gist of it, and I'd be happy to entertain questions or comments.
So North Shore Habitat no longer exists, it's Essex County.
Sorry, say again?
So North Shore Habitat, wasn't there a North Shore Habitat?
North Shore Habitat has been absorbed into Essex County Habitat,
Okay.
as has Cape Ann Habitat, Merrimack Valley Habitat. It's now all one organization.
Okay.
Emerson, this is Chris McCarthy. I have a question for you. I'm not sure if you can answer it. I'd say recently, how much are you able to build projects for per square foot. If you have say you have the land, you already have the land in place. Do you have a figure that with all the volunteer efforts that you get, how much per square foot does it cost you to build, say, 1,000 square foot unit or house?
I can't give you a current figure. My figures are not current
Okay.
on that. And I know it's gotten quite a bit more expensive because, for instance, we went through a doubling of lumber prices, for
Yeah.
instance, in the just in the pandemic, let's say, and whatever other supply chain issues. We were, I don't want to say, but my figures are probably 5 years old at this point.
Yeah.
Probably in the $110, $120 a square foot range.
Gotcha. And that's with a lot of volunteers, and I got you. Yeah,
That's with a fair amount. Typically, we would be paying people for excavation, foundation, sewer and water. Those pretty much all have to be. There's very little volunteer stuff available there because most of those people are relatively small contractors, and sometimes they would chip in and discount or contribute something, but they basically can't afford very much. Where we would get substantial donations from contractors would be where we would get donation of the plumbing work for a unit or a couple units from a medium-sized plumbing contractor. And they would donate all the labor. And then we would wind up getting, let's say, the plumbing materials donated from a wholesaler. And so
Excellent.
that way we could kind of clear out that whole piece of it. It wasn't, what shall I say, it wasn't amateur volunteers. Most of the framing, roofing, and siding is done by corporate volunteers who come in groups, but supervised by professional staff. Or
Gotcha. Excellent.
once in a while, a carpentry contractor will come and say, hey, I'll bring my crew in and we'll frame the first floor for you in a day with a framing crew.
Mhm. Gotcha. And all you guys have to do is bring diet tonics and hot dogs, right? Is that all you provide for those guys? Or beer, yeah, or the beer. You have to bring the beer.
Usually we'll try to provide food, and the way we do that is try to provide something a little more upscale than hot dogs. A lot of times we can talk a local eatery into
Excellent.
providing a pretty nice lunch for those guys.
Gotcha. Excellent. Thank you very much.
So we're talking lobster rolls then, Emerson, right?
But no, we've never mentioned the lobster rolls.
Only in Gloucester and Rockport.
If it were up to me, I definitely would have been soliciting lobster rolls. But usually the people who did I was when I was involved with Habitat, I was always involved in the construction end of things, not the soliciting donations of food. So
Can you share what is some of your criteria that you're looking for? So say it's a single family or a multifamily unit that is, available here in Gloucester. Like, what would be criteria that you would be looking for a project?
Ideal would be raw land. It's with mostly volunteers doing framing, roofing, siding. It's a lot easier to teach volunteers how to do new construction precisely than to do rehab. Because when you're doing rehab, a lot of times every piece that you're cutting is slightly different. Whereas with new construction, it's a lot easier to mass produce parts for a house and pre-assemble subparts. That being said, we're looking for what's available. And so we're looking for stuff in an appropriate size range that could be converted into units of an appropriate size. So either we'd be looking for 1,000 square feet per floor, let's say, or an old beat up townhouse or a row of townhouses that we could take and gut out if necessary. That would usually be what's available to us. We don't tend to find, what shall I say, affordable conversions that are in excellent shape. So we're looking, but as I say, raw land would probably be ideal. The other thing we would look at is doing partnerships with developers who are doing for-profit development, but don't want to do the affordable units themselves and would rather parcel out, say, a duplex to Habitat to do on their property. And the Habitat volunteers would go foundation through finish and not get involved in the other homes that the developer's building. We have one like that that's coming up in Hamilton, I think, in the near future.
How could that partner with inclusionary zoning, Greg?
Yes, that would be
Is that something that
definitely Habitat would be open to that kind of partnership.
So I'm curious, Emerson, do you deed restrict your units?
Usually we've used several different templates in the past. More recently, we've been leaning toward deed restriction or putting stuff in a land trust. There are some communities that for their community participation specifically want one form or another. But Habitat's point of view is trying to produce units that are long-term affordable for that economic slice of the world. So it's not exclusively deed restriction or land trust. And at one time there was what shall I say, Habitat held all the mortgages, and there was a limitation on what could happen with the mortgages and they could be sold to as a mortgage holder. But once a long-term mortgage elapsed, then a family might have it. They might be free to dispose of it on the open market. That turned out to be, in some cases, a less satisfactory method. So now it's pretty much always deed restriction or land trust.
Can I ask a question, Heather? Emerson, I'm curious what your public reaction has been in the communities you work in.
It has varied immensely, I would say, from a lot of negativity to a very positive and welcoming reaction. And it's hard to characterize where that or predict. I guess if you look at a community and you talk to all the people in the local community, if you're not familiar with that community, locally one can pretty well predict how a neighborhood is likely to react. But by town, it's not very predictable. For instance, in Lawrence, where we built a lot, there are typically all Habitat units got welcomed with open arms, because a lot of times they were being built on vacant lot, infill lots in the middle of the city, which were obtained from the city even for $1 sometimes. That's no longer true, but through an RFP process. And those lots typically were nuisance lots that attracted drug dealing or prostitution or all sorts of things that are just dumping trash, which are bad for the neighborhood. And the owners are not paying taxes. So the city would take them for unpaid taxes, and at least They would be tax revenue producing, and there would be a family there, which wouldn't put up with any illegal shenanigans, obviously, in their yard. Others, towns, I remember we did one project in Haverhill where there were a couple of neighbors who were adamantly opposed to it. And it went through, but it took quite a few hearings to get it through, with the support of some neighbors and the city, which was very supportive of the project. We had a project in Salisbury in which the community in general has been very supportive, but there's not a lot of neighbors right adjacent to it. So most people don't have feelings about it. We did a project in Ipswich jointly with the Ipswich Housing Authority. It's right across from Bruning Marketplace, where there's 3 Habitat units in there, along with a Housing Authority unit. And that one was generally received quite favorably. So it's a little hard to predict, but it's more by neighborhood than it is by I think by town, frankly. If people in the neighborhood feel threatened, like their home values are threatened by affordable housing, then they're going to tend to resist it. Part of that is on us to make people understand that indeed, in general, home values are not threatened by affordable housing, but tend actually to rise. And there's the data there to demonstrate that, tend to rise when affordable home ownership is put into place.
I really appreciate.
What's your source on that?
I'd have to go back and get you the data. Our
Yeah,
executive
please.
director, who doesn't happen to be available to this evening, but who would be happy to address the Affordable Housing Committee at sometime in the future, would have that. I've read that in Habitat literature on their national website, and apparently they've done they have found the studies which produce the data that bring that out. My role has not really been as much in pitching habitat housing as in supervising volunteers on site. I was a builder developer for many years and was a construction manager for Habitat for about 20 years. And so I'm particularly involved in site work and contractors and that end of the development process, rather than the persuading homeowners or neighbors and sponsors to sponsor a project. So I don't have all that at my fingertips.
Well, I really appreciate hearing your perspective from a regional position.
Somebody's got a thing going on in the background, like a television or radio or something.
It could be me. Let me go. I'm not sure.
Thanks, Ruth.
I mean, I can sort of back up Emerson's point about the property values and the research data that shows that it certainly doesn't have a negative effect to build affordable housing around in neighborhoods. There's quite a lot of research out there. I think I can't say that it increases values, but I would imagine, given the type of properties that you're talking about, you're purchasing, which could include, blighted or buildings that aren't.
This is an important point. It's just that if I want this as a talking point, I want to know what the source is. Not that we believe it to be true. I want to be able to knowledgeably quote sources.
There is quite a lot of data out there.
Well, then fine. It should be easy to get. It's just we can't say there's a lot of data. I mean, that's just
Okay.
No, and I think all the data itself as well, I think, is the projects that they've taken on, and the taken on are the ones that have the. I think that not all neighborhoods, it wouldn't make all all neighborhoods obviously make the
No.
values go up. But the projects that they've gotten involved with, I'm sure they have because of the value of the land cost of which they're able to purchase or work on as well. So I think the data would definitely show that wherever they've done projects, that the values have gone up because they've cleaned up a mess and they've provided housing and people to look over it. But so yeah, and I think we're all saying the same thing. But in Annisquam, it wouldn't bring the values up. But over the course of time since they established Habitat for Humanity, they brought up the values in their neighborhood because they've chosen neighborhoods that need housing and that are affordable and within distance to get to services and et cetera. So I think I think the data will show that.
Also, if you look at the houses that we've built, and just for instance, probably everybody here drives up 133 through Essex at some point, through Ipswich.
Those are beautiful. Yeah.
If you go and look at the three houses in back, the three single-family houses opposite Bruni's Marketplace, I mean, we're not talking elegant here. We're not building mansions, but they're nice-looking homes. They're kind of Cape Cod style. And they're very much like other homes in the neighborhood, right? And so,
Oh yeah, nobody's questioning that they're nice. No, I just was asking for,
but it's
data
not
on your,
English and it's not Eastern
yeah.
Point either.
Yeah. No, but nobody's challenging the value of what you do.
Well,
I was
some
just-
people though, I
to
think,
just to the point of increasing value or whatever in the neighborhood. All I was asking for was the sources of that information.
right,
I'm
you don't want to
not
bring it
at
up in a
all
public
in
meeting
doubt
and
about the
somebody go,
value
oh,
of
no, you want to have some backup if
Yeah.
somebody challenges you, and wisely so.
Yeah.
I just don't happen to have.
Oh, I
those
get it.
folks
Yeah. All right.
myself.
Yeah. Thank you though.
So yeah, any information that you could send over, that'd be great. I think MJ would like to see that.
How I could have somebody send that, how would you like, to what email address, shall I say, would you like me to have somebody send that?
Jamie,
Listen,
could you send it
you
to
could send
yours?
it, you can send it to planning@gloucester-ma.gov
Okay,
and I can forward it out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll follow up with you tomorrow, Emerson.
okay, sounds good.
Did anybody have any other questions for Emerson?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for coming and
Thank you so much.
introducing yourself. And
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for coming.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you so much.
And thank you for your dedication to the cause.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, definitely.
we definitely welcome Habitat back to Gloucester.
Okay. Should we move on?
Yes.
Sure.
So the discussion on strategic planning consultant, I can't remember who was on that. I did see it in the notes. Deanna, and did anybody talk to the consultant, or do we have a meeting set up?
I can provide you an update. So
Okay.
where we kind of last left off in the fall was the motion to move forward with the outline scope of services from Goldson. And it took a little bit of patience to make sure that the funds were all transferred as they were supposed to be to the trust from the short-term rental revenue. So those accounts have been established. We just actually today finally got the purchase order in place. So they are set to start to get going on that. One of the things that they did outline, just because of their schedule and trying to marry that with the trust schedule, Mondays are particularly difficult. So the first available date I think that would work for a kickoff would be October 26th, if that works with folks' schedules. I know you would typically have been scheduled, I think, to meet again on the 15th or 17th, I can't remember which. But wondering if that would be a Wednesday, if that works for folks, and it would be a slightly later start. We can certainly go back and try to look at other dates. But that was kind of like the first available to really meet with the trust. In advance of that, we will certainly meet with them as staff. And I think we talked about potentially having a member or two just for an initial meeting before we kind of come back to the full trust.
This is October 20th?
October 26th,
Oh,
I believe it's a
26th.
Wednesday. It's a Wednesday.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. Are you saying that the 26th is our full meeting, or is that the brief meeting with a few members and the consultant?
So that would be a full trust meeting.
Okay.
And maybe what we would do, or I would suggest is you maybe not have the meeting on the 15th and then wait for one meeting next month on the 26th with a 7 o'clock start time. And I think if as a trust who wanted to be involved in kind of the initial consult, whoever that's going to be, we'll try to coordinate that time in advance of that. It would probably be earlier in October.
I can do the 26th at 7 o'clock if that works for others.
I can do it too.
Me too.
Yeah.
Did you say 7 o'clock, Dina?
Oh, 7?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7. I know it's a little bit later.
And it's, I didn't look at my calendar. It's still a Monday?
It's a
No.
Wednesday.
No, actually, it
Wednesday.
is a Wednesday.
Sorry, okay.
Yeah.
So not meeting on the 15th, but meeting on that day. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it actually was the 17th.
17th. Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, we're talking October, right? Okay.
Yes, we're talking October.
All right, so not the 17th, but the 26th.
Yeah.
Yep.
Got it.
27th. Oh,
27th.
sorry, 26. Don't listen. to me.
26. 26.
I'm adding to it myself.
Okay.
And
Greg, I'd like to, if there's a meeting with staff, consultant, I'd like to be there.
Okay.
Thank you.
That would likely be business hours for that meeting, but we'll circle
you're-
around.
Where are the directions to your office?
Very funny. Very funny.
I would like
Okay.
to be involved with that too, if there's more space for other members to join. If not, it's okay. I can wait. Okay.
Is there any other discussions? Or do we have
All
a
I've
motion to
got.
adjourn?
I said
Do
that's
we
all
have a
I've got.
motion? Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's a
Aye.
roll call.
Roll call. Oh, sorry. Joe Berlino?
Roll
Yeah.
call for adjournment? Oh, gee.
I
All
know.
Mary
motions
John
vote.
Boylan, yeah.
Dana Fay?
Yes.
Ruth Pino?
Yes.
Mary John Boland?
Yes.
Heather? Yes.
Just like the Von Trop.
All in
See you
favor?
next month.
Chris McCarthy, yes.
Did I
Thank
say
you,
you?
everyone.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm drifting away.
I didn't
Okay.
mean to miss you.
Thank
So
you.
I'll confirm,
right,
I'll
good night,
confirm the next
everybody.
meeting via email. Okay.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.